I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone, who teach and rule well. And Shalom to the sincere Akyam, Spanish truth and sincerity. Shalom. So in this video, I want to, touch on the topic of the Sabbath. And, we, in Great Millstones, we are firm believers, and we just know that it is the truth that the Sabbath is determined according, to the moon, and to be more specifically, according to the new moon. You see, in this day and age, we have been told that the quote-unquote rest day is supposed to be is supposed to be on a Sunday, which that quote-unquote, makes the seventh day of the week, because we were told that 6 days shall thou work, and the seventh shall be the Sabbath, which, goes into to cease, which means to cease from all your labor and all your own pleasures, basically a day, to recharge and, acquire all the energy needed for the next 6 days. You see, and, the account that we, have in 1 Samuel chapter 20, describes very clearly, when basically the first day of the month is determined, or how it is determined. You see, and the account that I have here right in front of me is the account in which, David, sought to leave the presence of both Saul and Jonathan, because he wanted to create distance, between Saul and himself, because he knew that King Saul, basically had evil intended towards him, and then Jonathan and David spake on, certain things and ways, to find out whether that was the case, but also, how it should be approached, and, when King David was allowed, to take its distance, from Jonathan and Saul. Salaki, I'm taking a sip of my coffee. Let me this is 1 Samuel chapter 20, and let me just start off at verse 17. It says, "And Jonathan caused David to swear again, because he loved him, for he loved him as he loved his own soul." And that is actually what we are supposed to do, according, to the will of the Heavenly Father. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Treat him the way that you want to be treated, right? Verse 18. Then Jonathan said to David, verse 18. Then Jonathan said to David, "Tomorrow is the new moon, and thou shalt be missed, because thy seed will be empty." Yeah, because, King David was actually, told to basically come live with the household of Saul, because he was supposed to play the harp for King Saul, as an evil spirit would, be upon him, and, it would be inquired of King David, to play the harp, But one of the things that is being stressed in verse 18 as well is that it says, "Tomorrow is the new moon," and that is one of the things that we should pay attention to. And so here it mentions the new moon. As we're going to read on, we're going to go into the story a little bit, we're going to come find out, what the day after the new moon is actually, called in reference you know. Verse 19, and when thou hast stayed 3 days, then shalt thou go down quickly and come to the place where thou didst hide thyself when the business was in hand, and shalt remain by the stone Ezel. And I will shoot 3 arrows on the side thereof, as though I shot at a mark. And behold, I will send a lad, saying, Go, find out the arrows. If I expressly say unto the lad, Behold, the arrows are on this side of thee, take them, then come thou, for there is peace to thee, and no hurt, as the Lord Jehovah liveth. You see, so, King David, or, back then it was still David, but David and Jonathan, they spake on a way, to determine the situation, whether, King Saul was in the mind state of, doing evil unto King David or not, you know. Verse 21, and behold, I will send a lad, saying, Go, find out the arrow. If I expressly say unto the lad, behold, the arrows are on this side of thee, take them, then come thou, for there is peace to thee, and no hurt, as the Lord Jehovah liveth. But if I say thus unto the young man, behold, the arrows are beyond thee, go thy way, for the Lord hath sent thee away. And as touching the matter which thou and I have spoken of, behold, the Lord Jehovah be between me and thee forever. Between thee and me forever, Salakia. So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon was come, the king set him down to eat meat. And the king sat upon his seat, and as at other times, even upon the seat by the wall. And Jonathan arose, and Abner sat by Saul's side, and David's place was empty. Nevertheless, Saul spake not anything that day, for he thought something had befallen him. He is not clean, surely he is not clean. Verse 27, and it came to pass on the morrow, which was the 2nd day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Saul said unto Jonathan his son, Wherefore cometh not the son of Jesse to meat, neither yesterday nor today? And Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. Salakia, I already passed the point. Verse 27 is the point actually that we need for this lesson as well. It says, and it came to pass on the morrow, which was the 2nd day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Saul said unto Jonathan his son, Wherefore cometh not the son of Jesse to meat, neither yesterday nor today? You see, so Herod mentions the day after the new moon. And what is being mentioned over here is that it mentions that that day is referred to as the 2nd day of the month. So how do we establish, the beginning of a new month according to the scriptures? We determine that according to the new moon. So when, when there's, no moon in sight, because a moon, he waxes and wanes, right? So the moon, he becomes bigger and he fades away into nothing. So from nothing to, something to nothing. That's how the moon actually moves throughout the month. And that's how we're able to, determine according to the phases of the moon, which week we are in. So when you have nothing, that's when you have a new moon. A new month is about to approach, or a new month is approaching, or we have approached the new month, right? And as it is, going completely, you have half the moon. That's basically 1 week into it. Then you have the whole moon, that's 2 weeks into the month. Then you have the half the moon again, but then different side, that's 3 weeks basically into the month. And then when it starts to fade away again up to nothing, that's basically your 4th week, heading into the next month, right? That's how the Heavenly Father actually set up, the way for us to determine, when a new moon, is established and when there is supposed to be the Sabbath, right? If we go to the book of Genesis and that's Genesis chapter 1, and I believe it is around verse 20. Let me see. Let me see where it is. Yeah, so this is Genesis chapter 1, verse 14. Well, it's not, literally around verse 20, but, this is Genesis chapter 1, verse 14. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons, and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. So verse 14 says, "And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." So how do we determine, basically the time that we're in? When we would look up to the constellations that are in heaven, the sun basically moves around, those constellations during the year. And that determines basically also the month, and the seasons that we're in. But when you have, the moon, those determine, the beginning of the month and the days, So according to that, which, we have the tribe of Issachar back in the days that knew about, they were observers of time. They was able to look at, the heavens, the firmament, the constellations and everything, and they would know what to do according to that. That information or that knowledge is lost in this day and age, but, there is still certain things, uh, that 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 can be, I would say, like, can be made known by looking at it. You also have the farmer almanac. Farmers back in the days knew what would be the best time, to plant crops and harvest and everything. But they did that according to, also the moon and the seasons and etc. And that's how the Heavenly Father basically uses the firmament and the stars and the sun and the moon to signify the times and the seasons that we're in. But what have we created, or what have we received, by the hands of Esau? That is that Gregorian calendar, man. Instead of, basing everything upon, what the Heavenly Father has given unto us to observe, and from them be able to determine, what's basically going on, concerning the times, you see. This is Sirach chapter 43. And starting at verse 6, "He made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of times and a sign of the world. From the moon is the sign of feasts, a light that decreased in her perfection." Yeah, so a lot of feasts are based upon the Sabbath, or, based upon the calculations, determined from, certain Sabbaths, which those are new moons, which those are, according to the moon, right? Verse 8, "The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven." So the reason that the month is called month is because it is stemmed from the moon. It stems off from the moon, which, that is the instrument that is being used to determine the days of the month. You see? So that is basically, quote unquote, nature, or, the way of the Heavenly Father to use nature, to use His creation so that we will be able to observe the time, and from that moment on, we will be able to have the feasts, or, the holidays, the high holy days, that are written in the scriptures, because let's say we go to, let me see. When we go to Exodus 12 concerning the Pasach, let me see. Yeah, so this is Exodus 12 and 1. And the Lord Yahweh spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you, which that is the month Abib, which that is around, March, April, in modern day terms, depending on how things are positioned. But that's the rough time frame in the Gregorian calendar, March, April. Verse 3, Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of their souls. Every man according to his eating shall make you count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep and from the goats. So this is what we're supposed to do with the Pasach. But here it says, verse 6, And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. So that is basically the beginning of the Pasach, the Passover. But how is it determined? It is first determined according to what is the first day of the month. When is the new moon during that period of the month of Abib? When is that established? And then you count those, 14 days later, man. Basically you count from that. What is then the 14th day? So from the moon, is basically the celebration of feasts. Right. Nee, papa zei dat je niet mocht komen. So that's basically how that works, man. So when we go back to 1 Samuel chapter 20, and we go back to verse 27 again, and it says, And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the 2nd day of the month, that David's place was empty, and Saul said unto Jonathan his son, Wherefore cometh not the son of Jesse to meat, neither yesterday nor today? You see, so that on the morrow, which was the day after the new moon, and then it emphasizes on which was the 2nd day of the month, now it is established that the new moon established the rest of the month, right? So from that moment on, you would basically count the 6 days, and then you would establish the 7 days, right? The 2nd day of the month, You see? The 2nd day, the 3rd day, the 4th day, the 5th day, the 6th day, and the 7th day should be, So according to those things, you would calculate and count, man. So the new moon is the 1st day of the month, and in this verse it establishes that the 2nd day, which was the day of the morrow, is the 2nd day of the month. You see? 6 days shall thou work, and the seventh shall be the Sabbath, you know. So yeah, with that, I do hope and pray that this video was edifying. And with that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakodash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone who teach and rule well. And shalom to the sincere Akim, splendorous truth and sincerity. Shalom.